This is the story of a student who never seemed to make it to class. The story goes something like this. In the fall of 2015, I came down with some sort of viral illness. I was 1 month into my master's degree in a new province and far from home. For a week, I remained feverish in a cold apartment with a strange roommate whose bedroom was also the living room and who kept odd, unpredictable hours. After that, something was pathologically wrong. It's difficult to talk about this point in my life. I got sick, but not the kind of sick that went away or was easy to detect. It was the kind of sick that needed dedicated investigation, and that was a problem. As an out-of-province student, I could only make medical appointments at the university clinic. Beyond simple blood tests, the clinic doctors could do little for me. I was unable to see outside specialists unless I wanted to pay out of pocket. Sometimes I would wait in the ER, slouched over my weekly seminar readings in the patient holding area, and the hospital would honor a mysterious loophole where my bill would be sent back to my own province. The clinic was also hopelessly overloaded by students funneled into this system. Appointments were made a month in advance. Walk-ins typically filled up an hour before the clinic opened its doors at 8:30 a.m. I entered into a world of circular institutional barriers and puzzling uncertainty. This took up a lot of time. I was supposed to be in class, that is, the graduate seminar. The graduate seminar was the next stage of academic professionalization in the humanities. Twice a week, for 3 hours, graduate students sat in a room and discussed the assigned readings. The point of these seminars was to prove that we could analyze critically, without the intellectual hand-holding of the professor, and, more importantly, that we had original thoughts. And attendance was mandatory. You needed to be there, and I wasn't. I was in bed, sleeping. At a certain point in this first year of my master's degree, I somehow lost the ability to wake up. The issue is that you can't exactly email a professor with this line of reasoning. Dear Professor So-and-so, I am writing to you to apologize for once again missing your seminar. I somehow slept through my alarm, or heard it, but was too physically exhausted to get out of bed. Instead, the best I could come up with, the most acceptable thing I could come up with, was to attribute this mysterious ailment to the handful of equally mysterious symptoms, which I couldn't really explain. Perhaps it was the lingering bronchitis-like illness, crushing my chest, depleting me of the energy to do anything. And so the emails went out. I wrote bizarre things like, my bronchitis came back to haunt me all over again, and that I'd been writing my term paper while hopped up on coffee and antibiotics. Other emails repeated this refrain. I will regrettably not be able to attend class today. My bronchitis has unfortunately resurfaced, and I must go to the doctor's to get some antibiotics. And then there were those in which I seemed to divulge too much, almost attempting to over-justify a truth that I feared they wouldn't believe. Hi Katie, I apologize for missing yesterday's class, I wrote. Although I was present during the graduate seminar, I was trying to hold it together and entered a weird, not paying attention manic mode, brought on by general exhaustion, that forced me to skip your seminar. I wonder if they found these disclosures annoying. Email after email, I made promises that I couldn't keep. I won't be absent again, I swore to my professors, and well, the next week I was absent again. I hated myself. I was unreliable. Now, some of you listeners may be laughing at these emails, and I can assure you I laughed quite a bit too going back through them, but it was an embarrassed kind of laughter. These emails were so pathetically desperate. I thought confessing to my professors may provide some sort of leniency, but confessing didn't get me anywhere useful. There were still academic expectations to show up in person, sick or not, even if I was handing in my assignments on time. One professor, in fact, warned me that it was well within their rights to fail me as a result of these absences.
In graduate school, there should basically be no absences, or one given some extreme circumstances like an emergency appendectomy. All joking aside, missing 3 or more classes is unprofessional and should be avoided at all costs. I understand that you were having trouble, but missing that much class and being rather casual about it was pretty extreme.
I wrote back that I did not feel casual about my lack of attendance. I thanked her for her ultimately merciful decision to pass me. Then I wrote to the head of my department and asked about taking a leave of absence. I never did take a leave. I continued to miss class and to show up at the ER down the road from my apartment, desperate for help. Things did not get better. In my final term of coursework, I broke down in a professor's office. Barely able to get a word out, my shirt collar soaked in tears, the professor arranged for me to meet with an access advisor at the Office for Students with Disabilities. This professor, I want to point out, was the only person at the university to send me down the right path, where someone was able to help me. A few days later, I walked into the disability offices, not knowing that these services existed and not knowing why I was there. I didn't see myself as disabled, not yet anyways. And, as it turns out, the office didn't see me as disabled either, not in a legal sense. I needed medical documentation, a definitive diagnosis, before they could offer their official support. Another institutional barrier. It's taken me years to get that paperwork, to get a documented diagnosis, and here I am again in grad school. This time around, I'm more equipped, more experienced. I have a diagnosis, one that must be at least acknowledged. There will be less embarrassing emails sent to my professors' inboxes. And this time around, I will be reflecting on my own experiences as a disabled graduate student as I make my way through my degree. And this is what the podcast is about, being disabled in grad school. This series will explore the many challenges disabled academics deal with inside academic institutions, in the hopes of shifting the university experience for future disabled graduate students. There will be other disabled voices, other disabled stories, some fictional, some real, throughout the podcast series. I've interviewed disabled graduate students and scholars to expand the archive of disabled university experiences. I'll also try to include my story, although part of me does not want to disclose my experiences, to hide my disability status. There is risk in talking so publicly about disability. But another part of me knows that we need these stories so that other disabled people can get to grad school. My boyfriend, a believer in statistics, has insisted I rattle off some numbers here. In 2012, Statistics Canada published a report on people living with disabilities. They state, quote, while 27% of Canadians aged 25 to 64 years of age without disabilities had a university degree at the bachelor's level or higher, The figure among those with disabilities was 14%. The percentage with a university degree decreased as the severity of the disability increased. As well, a third of students with disabilities reported that they took fewer courses and subjects. 30% reported that it took them longer to achieve their present level of education. 30% discontinued their studies, and 23% reported that their education was interrupted for long periods. About 40% indicated that people avoided or excluded them at school, and 27% experienced bullying. These findings are not isolated to Canada alone. As another example, in the United States, 16.7% of people with a disability have a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to 34.9% of people without a disability. Less is known about graduate students, professors, independent researchers, or staff with disabilities. Over the last several years, disability scholar Margaret Price has been leading a disabled faculty and staff study, but data on graduate students still remains largely ungathered. This podcast hopes to fill in some of this gap. But enough numbers. I prefer stories. I'm Olivia Dreisinger, and this is Diagnosis Grad School.